Psychotechnologies live.
Woo!
Woo!
Welcome to this week.
Yes,
Kind
and
of
a very
exciting.
exciting week it is.
Are we always excited? Is that a thing?
Yeah, well, we're alive.
That's
When I'm
true.
dead, I probably won't be excited anymore.
Right. I do feel like I am always excited, which is, a me thing.
Yeah. Plus, like, it's exciting to do this. I'm actually very excited to be a YouTube or
YouTuber.
a YouTuber. I think that's the technical term. A YouTube streamer.
I like being a known voice. I met someone today who was like, "Hey, I know you. You're one that I want to keep an eye on," or something. And I was like, "Oh,
Really?
yeah." I don't know the full context of where they were coming from, but I was like, "Ooh, I'm known."
That's cool. I am starting to get messages from people, which is interesting.
Yeah. Don't let the fame go to your head, Daniel.
I don't know that I'm famous, but yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I'm like, oh, and then like I get the messages, and then I'm like, oh, this is what other people have felt like when I send them messages,
Right.
and that's very cool.
Yeah. I I know how much I idolize people sometimes when I send them messages like, "You're my hero, you're my favorite, you're awesome."
No one sent me that yet.
No. I haven't got any of those
Well, my
either.
wife does sometimes, but
I haven't got any of those either, but I know like the amount of investment that I will have to have in order to go send someone a message is like I've got to give a shit, and I've got to like type something out and send it to them and be like, "Hey, I think you're cool," or like, "What do you think of that?" Or
yeah,
it's exciting to be known.
yeah, yeah. It's exciting to be wanted. I like being wanted.
Mm,
And like it's not like big stuff yet, it's still very small stuff, but um it's their initiation. I feel like I get other people's initiate, like I get their initiation, and that feels amazing.
huh.
Yeah, it's like energy entering my system versus me like sending it out.
Right. Yeah, interesting. So the one of the reasons why this episode is exciting for me is because I took a week off. Um, and I took a week off to run a retreat, and it was 5 days long, with 12 people plus a teacher in a fairly intense group setting, which it's a lot. I feel like the first thing I have to say to anyone, or like I've been standing next to people when someone has asked one of the participants, what was it like? And the answer, the easiest first answer is, well, it's a lot, which is fascinating. But the start of the program focuses on feeling feelings, and like not just like, oh, I know I'm angry, but trying to feel it, like genuinely feel the anger that I have. And that applies. So the classic set: fear, anger, and sadness, right? Which we as adults we kind of don't habitually have all that often. We've learned to grow away from them and learn to just ignore them and not have them and suppress them. And but what it feels like to me from just being through this retreat is it's like my mind is set up to run away from these emotion. Classic thing, right? Fear, anger, and sadness. We become averse to them, and because of that, the like intricate details of like having a thought and then having an emotional, like a very small emotional response and then flinching away from that thought is the natural setup of my mind's territory. And so because of those habitual responses, there is territory that I cannot go to or don't habitually go to or usually turn away from. And there's a way in which I'm not being with myself and advocating for myself and noticing how much I've set up my own bullshit because I have all these habitual runaways from the like well, that was awkward. Just try not to say that again.
Mhm.
And so like it's fine to have a few of them, but I have so many of them that I don't even see them. They really control not even just what I do, but how I think. And it's like my subconscious is guiding me so much more because it's got all these like rules, like don't say awkward things when you first meet people and those sorts of things.
Mhm.
So it's like the retreat is like starting to examine these habits, particularly by also going against them deliberately. So one of the big practices is called welcoming the unwelcome. And that's the like, I don't know, the like one of the first 3 conversations that we had like really early on the first day. Like, what are you feeling that you don't feel you're allowed to feel? So if you're like, I'm feeling quite awkward about being here, or I'm confused because I don't know what we're doing, or I'm grumpy because I had to put down my life for a week. Like by naming all of those, we get to welcome the unwelcome. We get to welcome the experience that we usually deny. And then we also get to be vulnerable and demonstrate to the other participants that these are things that we want to be showing up with on purpose. So inevitably, everyone says the like, oh, my feet are cold, and like, I don't understand what the program is, and the like. I've named a couple of the, but it sort of breaks the ice a little bit to begin with.
Mhm. That's like it's a very deep, like it can be a very powerful tool, especially like setting tone, set and setting essentially. So you're setting the example of we're inviting in the things that we normally disallow or disinvite
Mm.
or won't admit to ourselves or try to send away or not welcome elsewhere. And then inviting that in makes it okay for people to have that during the retreat.
Mm. Right. And like so this is one of my learnings, is that people need to like start where they are and then go deeper gradually. So we start with welcoming the unwelcome, and then 3 days later we're like, oh, I felt so ashamed by that experience when someone said this thing and then someone said that other thing, and I was like, I'm completely left out of the circle. Like, to be able to say that, I needed to start with the like welcoming the unwelcome and recognize what usually paid attention to.
Yeah. Like that's I can see why people describe the retreat as a lot.
um,
Which is it's huge because like I do think like these things we carry around these things, and depending on the way we live our lives, that pile gets bigger or can get bigger over time.
mm.
And if you don't have the place, or you don't know what place you're allowed to deal with it.
Well, so one of the questions that comes up from time to time is like, how is the way that you're acting today representative of the way that you've been acting for your entire life? So are you careless in some way that you are maybe slightly ashamed of, but haven't really been able to see because you didn't want to welcome your shame enough? Or are you feeling the need to control the people around you, and you feel guilty about that, but because you've never wanted to feel the guilt, you've never really noticed how much you're trying to control people? Or are you masking your negative emotions with laughter, which we had a lot of that going in the retreat. But because you've never examined and permitted negative emotions to be there, masking the negative with laughter is just well socially accepted. But it's like, we can't work on the thing if we can't get to it, and we can't get to it if it's masked by laughter.
Yeah.
So that's a big one for me, to like keep an eye on something like my projection of people's interiors and their exteriors. And so if they are smiling and laughing, even though there's turmoil going on inside, to, for me, pay attention to what I think is their interior and maybe invite them to drop the mask a little bit, or to notice that they are covering up with laughter, and are they sure they want to do that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the undertones as well was connection. So there's something like, this is a tricky one. At one point on my spiritual journey, I discovered just like how alone I was. And I called it the separate minds problem. You know, like my mind is over here in my body and your mind is over there in your body. And all I want to do is like hold hands with you or something, like, you know, to be in the same, the equivalent of like holding hands, but from a mind place. And I can't, that's actually the nature of reality, is that I'm over here and you're over there. And so in order to bridge the gap of distance, we need to work on it, or we need to feel like we're open to connection, hopefully on both sides, in order to connect. And so some sort of noticing of the aloneness of each of our individuals is a very powerful experience. And then connecting anyway is also a very powerful experience.
That's huge. That's so hard. Like being alone, recognizing another person as alone, being not in connection, and like sitting and acknowledging that it's like there's a stranger who you don't understand sitting across from you, and then connecting with them. That is an experience.
So obviously that comes up on retreat as well. I'm aware that I have to make confidential the details of people's personal sharing, but these are like some of mine and some of my noticings. This is like, and there's a benefit here of when one person is vulnerable, other people feel able to step in and be vulnerable as well, and to start looking at themselves with the honest and also critical and also compassionate lens sometimes. So there was a participant that seemed very frozen, and this was another one of the exercises that we ended up leaning into on and on, like a couple of times over the week, was projection. When I look at you, I project my story. I project on you that you are like this, you are a certain way. And then
your face reminds me of my father. And
right, right. Or we went for archetypes as well. Like, you remind me of the archetype of the warrior, of which there are
like a sneaky person or something,
right, of the thief or something. Yeah,
you remind me of the criminal face,
right? And there's sort of archetypes seem to fall into like benevolent, good, and evil. Like you remind me of the devil, or like you remind me of the hero. We tend to project the hero as positive, and the devil is negative. And so, but there's something that the devil can do, which is he can trick people. And if only I had that power like you do, that would be awesome for me. So starting to name the projection, like, it's still, hopefully, if done in a like healthy way in terms of subtle energy, it's still mine. When I say I project the devil on you, it's still in my mind space, but you gets to land on you a little bit, and you get to say yes, no, maybe a little bit, not really, like, actually this fits me in this way. And then we get to dance with what it is what was my unspoken theory about who you are. Like, you have a bit of devilishness in you, and then you get to hold for me my projection of the devil a little bit, and I get to deal with it and process it and work through it a little bit, and so I can stop projecting the devil on people in my future. and maybe project, and maybe I can re-own the power of what the devil can do. The devil can be selfish in a way that the hero can't.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
so, like,
because they're not really the devil, right?
right,
So they're embodying qualities that you're perceived as devil, and some of those qualities are probably misattributed as negative when they're
right,
in fact just maybe just powerful.
right. So playing with those, and well, playing seriously with them, like I'm looking for a projection I have on Daniel that I can um, and I have something around like appearance. Like Daniel's got a bit of a chubby face, and I'm like, but that's like an easy shot. I need the deeper personality. Oh, interesting. There's the like, so I have a projection on Daniel that Daniel is the happy fool, and Daniel gets to say yes, no, maybe, and wait. So there's another piece of this. The second follow up we did was what is the effect on me? So this is my projection. I project that Daniel's a happy fool. This has the effect on me of kind of trusting Daniel more, and like being reassured that Daniel is harmless. And it means that I probably work well with Daniel because I think he's harmless. Now, Daniel gets to tell me if I'm right or wrong, or on the mark or off the mark, or like how that is for him to like hear all that.
Hear that? Yeah. Well, I'm definitely not harmless,
Right.
but I don't like hurting people,
Mm.
so it winds up being pretty close. It winds up being pretty similar until like shit goes down, and then you see a different side of me. I do play the happy fool a lot. That is like my main character. I would say that's my main.
Like video game main.
Yeah. There are lots of complex reasons actually why I play that character. But mostly it's because if somebody's like happy fools, like there's a certain just base level of like, what do you think people are? That gets projected on that. And if that's approximately something that I can deal with, then I'm going to get along with the person long term. So it's like it acts as a really good filter. Because like if you get a happy fool and like you should be nice to them, right? When somebody's nice to me, then we're gonna get along.
Well, if I were a different person, I might be super mad at Daniel for trying to play the happy fool when I know he's better than that or smarter than that or something.
So that's the thing. So that's it's interesting that you did that, because that's where it starts to get complex. So the happiness is like I am generally happy except when I'm depressed, and that doesn't happen so much anymore. So good. And I'm not usually playing happy. I usually actually am happy. So so that part kind of works out. And then the fool part is I have a lot of learning disabilities and I have a lot of strengths. And so it's actually like too complex. Like people can't understand it. And they don't get me. Which is fine. Like that's just the reality of the way I was born. And so like I need people to be able to deal with like my foolishness or whatever, like my inability to do certain things. And then the stuff that I'm good at, I just like to help people that are nice to me. So I don't know. Like there's probably another archetype that I'm gonna flip to at some point. I guess whatever the opposite of that is. Miserable smartass. I don't know. I am a smartass sometimes, but yeah, like when I'm serious about stuff, it's the more archetype that I lean into is not the fool, but the simpleton. So like
they're very close.
Yeah, they're very close and they're very similar, but they're not exactly the same. So this actually came from, I was studying Rabbi Nachman stuff. So he's like a rabbi. He's from Brezlov, which is in Ukraine, topical. And he started the Brezlover movement or something, or the Brezlover movement emerged from him. And he talks about Yaakov Ishtam Ba'olo. So there's this archetype of the simple individual.
Mm.
And like that was like really his thing, and his spirituality really connected with me at the time. And so as a person, I kind of go through life trying to be simple. Even though I love complexity and I really thrive in it, but I don't feel like I need to add to it. You know what I mean? Because when I do the complexity, it winds up being too complex and nobody can understand it. So I find like if I'm a simple person and you treat me properly, then the complex system that I'm actually engaged with and dealing with is going to be beneficial to both of us. Like you just have to try your best to be nice, and like everything else will work out. Like I could just do everything else. And so like that's kind of like the litmus test. If someone is nice and simple, then how do you treat them? And the people that treat me well from that state are the people that I want to hang out with. I don't know. Now I feel vulnerable. Like I shared things that I've never really shared before.
Right. Well, I'm not gonna cut you down for your vulnerability. Yeah, it does sound like vulnerable stuff. And this is the power of those exercises is to bring out the possible fragile nature, a little bit of self-awareness, a little bit of there's an open question for Daniel, like how long do you want to be, how much longer do you plan to be the fool? Will it be forever or will it be just for a little while?
I'm actually already transitioning.
Okay. And it's also like that's still my projection, right? Like this may not fit for you at all. Ideally, I want you to grow out of all projections anyway.
Oh yeah. So some of it on the channel is it's not really full, it's like simple. But some of it on the channel is like trying to keep things simple, like keep these complex, esoteric ideas and try to like simplify them and bring them down to earth in ways that people can understand them.
Well, it's also that the simple can be contrasted to the teacher, which is another archetype. And so teachers work best when there's someone to teach.
Yeah.
So leaning into that simple and like, please explain it to me is very powerful for bringing the teacher out in other people.
Yeah. And my sort of like when we're doing these conversations, my main thing is like have a good conversation or have a good experience for the listener. And so yeah, like sometimes that's like, I mean, when you talk, sometimes I do want to like launch off into the more complex things, like, and when we are off stream, our conversations are I think more complex. But to have, to play the like the role of the protagonist almost in the movies, where it lets the rest of the world orient around them in a way that the viewer can understand, or the listener in this case. And then the second thing is I'm actually really good at taking complex topics and moving them simple. So like I am like a lot of like the simplicity is me processing that complexity for others. Because historically I don't always trust people to process the complexity themselves. But I try to do about whatever the other person is. I don't know, maybe I do it too much for you. And that's why it's like this archetype is in your head.
I don't know. This is like tricky territory, right? Chances are, I think that if Daniel played the fool a little bit less, then he could be a bit more powerful and get more of what he wanted in the world. But I don't know.
Yeah. No, you're right. I am doing it in like limited capacities, like upgrading that.
Mm.
The problem is like people keep getting hurt every time I do stuff like this. And I keep like assuming other people are able to process things that they're not. And so, and then like things get messy.
Mm.
And so like the simplicity is almost just like, yeah, it's like a lot lower and I could be much more complex, but
Well, it
there
sounds
would
like
be
a safety thing as well. You're keeping
yeah,
yourself and others safe by keeping things simple.
yeah. And it's not really like keeping it simple. Like I generally like, cause like that's like the fool. Like I'm not the tyrant or like, oh, we have to be simple. It's like whatever's going on, I'm simple in that situation. And um instead of doing big things, I do small things in a big way.
Mm.
That come together in a big way.
Mm.
Thought that line last night.
Interesting. So one of the other things that I learned on this retreat, because it kept coming up, it came up a bunch of times, was using language from different perspectives. So the classic one is to talk about things from the you perspective. Like when you say something stupid in front of a group, you feel really ashamed. And that's like a mildly interesting statement. But to shift it to the I perspective and to say, when I say something stupid in front of a group, I feel ashamed.
Yeah.
Like resonates with my body a bit better. It's like
it's harder to say.
It's harder to say. It's more vulnerable. It's less protected. It's quite a lot more powerful. Yeah. And so a practice of switching to be a stronger individual was really powerful. So like, and would just gently, someone would be in the middle of sharing something in the you perspective, and then either someone across the group would be like, well, that's you, but that's not true for me. Because we like to universalize, that's me using the perspective there. We like to universalize.
I hate when people do that. Yeah.
Right. Well, I don't mind it if they're right. And
yeah. That's what I was saying. They're just usually wrong.
I prefer, if they're right, I like enjoy it a lot. But if they're wrong, then I'm like much more.
That's what I really like. One of the things I really liked about circling is that you don't do any of that. It's all I'm experiencing.
You can, but hopefully we're all watching you and do. We can all call you on your bullshit if you're claiming something about the group.
Yeah, that's true. I'm thinking for me at the beginning of circling where I'm like, I don't know what other people are thinking or what's going on right now. And then like just like building that skill set to be, I am experiencing this. Seeing the consequences of that share.
Yeah. One of the fascinating things for me is how strong the habit is to switch from I to you. I have practiced this. I know what I'm doing. And yet I find myself still in the you perspective.
Yeah.
And then the switch back is, well, there's two things. One is I want to be compassionate towards people when they're in the you perspective. Because I know how hard it is to sometimes say these things from the I perspective. And there's a way in which I can be like the word police of you have to say that from the I perspective.
Yeah. Tell us about that. Like, how do you guys do that? How do you do that without breaking containers? Because that is hard to call people out in like the right way or whatever.
My sense is that we got away with it during this retreat, that no one really was annoyed by the word police.
Okay.
Everyone was more like, oh, thanks for reminding me. But there is a possibility that one day someone will get annoyed at being word policed. And part of that is probably a balance between acceptance and challenge. And the whole container was, and this is a principle from containering, which is the balance between acceptance and challenge. And as long as you have a lot of acceptance, you can have challenge in gentle ways. If you only have challenge, then people get very triggered and defensive. And then you need to work on accepting their defenses to enable them to be exactly as they are before they can open up again.
Mm-hmm.
So we got away with it. Even though I was ready to like jump on the like, oh, we need more acceptance here. If ever someone was going to say, stop telling me how to use language. But we seem to get away with it. And so what would happen is someone would say a you perspective thing, and then someone else there was a couple of people did it more than others, but they would say, can you say that again, but using the word I? And then seems like there's a natural slowing down when I switch to the I perspective. I notice my voice goes a little slower as I cautiously get ready to say the thing from my I perspective. And
now you're about to reveal personal information.
There's like a dropping into my body as I slow down, and a like being closer to my feelings and my sensations as I do it, as opposed to being a like brain-based, head-based entity, like dropping into more of the sensations in the body and more of the emotions.
That's like, to me, that's like putting stuff on the line,
right?
Like putting yourself on the line to deal with this.
Yeah, actually, I quite like that as a description of what's going on for me when I use the I perspective. I'm like carving out declaring what is true in the world about me. This is how I am, or something, as opposed to people are like this. It's very safe. But if I go, this is how I am, it's almost threatening, because I'm like worried. I have this principle in my head that pops in a couple occasionally, which is be careful what you wish for, because sometimes you might get it. And so the naming of I am like this is almost threatening to a personal identity that is too open and too spacious and too free. To think that I would cut myself down into a box and be like, I am like this, it's scary for me. And I suspect scary for many people as well.
Yeah. I feel like there's this, like when you do the you, it's like you're affecting the social norms. And so you're making it kind of safe for yourself. When you say I, you're showing up with vulnerability. People can dismiss you. They can say, oh, you feel that way? Like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And like, or whatever they say. And then that's like a personal rejection. Or maybe they don't even reject you, but they're secretly thinking stuff and you don't know what it is. And also like you admit that to yourself, and that could be used later. And
did you hear what he said?
Yeah. Like that's serious stuff. And I actually really like, I now like have appreciation for people when they do that. Because if someone comes to me and they say, I this, I that, and not like I'm the greatest, but like I'm experiencing, or I feel this or whatever. I'm like, now I'm interacting with a human. Right? Versus if they're saying you, I'm like, is this programming or is this the person?
Yeah, I'm interested in I'm left with one open puzzle from the retreat, which is there's a sense of the cool thing about these projections is that I say, hey, Daniel, you're the happy fool. And then one of the things you do is you try it on a little bit to just check, am I not? And so even by using those words, I've started to carve the shape of reality slightly differently because you tried it on. And it's very little. It gets littler and littler the number of steps away I take. Like if I say, everyone gets worried about being vulnerable, you also try it on a little bit, but you're like, oh, the part of me that is everyone kind of tries that on. But as soon as I go, I get scared of being vulnerable, I'm trying it on myself.
Yeah.
I'm carving reality into a like personally vulnerable, personally well-defined shape, which is, if I use the phrase, I am a powerful being, that's fine. But if I use a phrase like I'm weak, like that is less fine. I actually try that on and check, am I weak when I say the phrase I'm weak?
Yeah, that one hurts.
And so I have this open question following the retreat of what is the best way to be around negative projection or negative identity? Because positive identity, well, I'm the best, easy. Negative identity, I'm a fool, I'm an idiot, I made terrible mistakes. I am currently making a terrible mistake. That's like, I don't want to try that on to check if it's true or not. But in not trying it on, I'm also blocking myself from possibly the truth. So I'm like this big question mark of like, what is the way to be around that? And I don't have an answer for that. That's my like simmering, one of the questions simmering in my mind.
So how would you say that question like succinctly in one sentence? Summing it up.
I'm gonna go with best. What is the best way to be around negative projection in the world? And one of the answers to that is that depends what you mean by best, and best for what.
Yeah, but like let's squint at it and answer it. That's what I mean. Like, oh, technically that's not the best is unknowable or whatever. But no, like the real question is
there's a separate question next to it of like, how do I want to be around negative projections?
Yeah, like that question becomes real. I deal with people negatively projecting on me.
Right. Well, that's kind of where the question came from. How do I deal with how do I want to, if there's like a 1-2, how do I deal with negative projections onto me? Like, should I tell people stop projecting on me? Then I'm just word policing them. Should I try them on and be like, yeah, when you do that, I get a little bit weaker when you call me weak.
Mm-hmm.
Be careful what you wish for. Like, do I set up like a metaphysical like warning in there, or do I like just try them on and like play with them?
Yeah, like all these things I think like have there's something about it. They have good qualities and negative qualities, and some of them are hackable in different ways. But yeah, I try to do, like, for me, if I can, like if they say a thing about me and I'm like, no, this isn't true, then I try to call them out and be like, that's not true. I don't want like, it's like kind of defending myself, right? Like that, nowadays we're, society is a little obsessed, I think, with identities, but I like there is still something to that. If somebody calls you a thing that you're not, like weak or a coward or whatever, saying no, I'm not. But if they're right, they're right. You gotta give the devil their due.
Right. So if it's a negative projection but it's true, I want to be able to hear it. I want to be able to accept it so that I can then work on it or do something with it. It may be the messenger of the person may be the bringer of bad news, but I still want to receive the news so I can do something about it.
Yeah.
And so I shouldn't shoot the messenger, for starters.
Yeah, or else you won't get any messages.
Right. Well, that's an important aspect of, if I'm being negatively projected on, I can't shoot the messenger. So just the like, be careful of what you wish for. Don't negatively project on me, because you kill me a little bit every time you do that. And that's just shooting the messenger.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there is a difference. Like you've used the term negatively projecting. I think there's, like, for me, at least when I heard it first, there's an implication that like it's like transference, right? And it would be like the technical term. You're taking your perceptions and putting them on other people, versus like when you said Daniel's the happy fool, the way I interpreted your experience was you were experiencing me, and this is what came up for you, which I think is not exactly projection. It's noticing. I don't know.
Well, it's complicated, and one of the problems here is, where is the boundary between me and you when I have that projection? Is there
Yeah.
like a force field bubble that surrounds my being that and then whenever I look through my bubble at Daniel, painted on my bubble is the archetype. And so it's only caused by my force field and the way my force field bubble interacts with the external world? Or is some of that like on you, that if someone else was standing here, they wouldn't get the full, they would get some other archetype? And so
Mm.
there is still information for you there, because you're at least enough of you is able to be a blank canvas to receive the happy full, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't have the happy full for everyone. So that there must be something in you that receives my happy full, even if it's small, or even if it's like something that is different to what I think it is. You provide a good substrate for it. So with a great question mark, how much of it is mine and how much of it is yours? It never really seems, it doesn't seem possible to be clear about that. Unless we get calibrated to many people and many circumstances and ourselves, and we trust ourselves and we trust our projections and we trust other people's responses. And
I don't think this matters, to be honest.
well, what matters
Like,
is there's
it
some
matters to a
information
certain
there.
extent, but not past a certain point.
It matters that there is some information there, but maybe we can't be certain how much.
Yeah. Like, yeah, like if you're getting, like, I think also, like, because the archetypes themselves are more heuristics than base principles. And so there's a certain amount, like, there's a certain amount, like, you have to be clear in a blank canvas to receive other people's archetypes. And if you're doing that, then you've gained information. And like, yeah, it's on you, but you know.
See, I suspect that if I read enough Jung, it would become apparent that the archetypes are deeper to reality, and we just have Daniel is a poor representative of the true archetype of the fool, rather than like Daniel lightly wears the thing, but there is like a deep truth to reality of the archetype of the fool, and Daniel wears it gently.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's different for different people, right? Like some people. So there's a bunch of things. There's a bunch of things you said. I think that the archetypes are relationships. Like a kid, like let's say like the king it's a relationship, but it's a relationship like subjects, or the king or the tyrant, right? Like if you have no other people, you're not, like, you only have yourself, and you could have that relationship with yourself, but then we're getting into IFS territory.
Well, I kind of imagine if you take the king and you put him on a deserted island.
Right. He could be regal with himself, but like there's
a limit.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't after a while.
Yeah, and the warrior is like, well, if you're in a war situation, like you're either going warrior or you're going demon or you're going like the weekend on that. Or like pacifist or whatever. Like there's only, you know what I mean? Like you're kind of stuck into certain responses to the situation. And so like in that sense, they're fundamental senses, in that they're fundamental emergent properties of the universe, but you're not the archetype. You're a human living the archetype or experiencing it or embodying it. And sometimes people get stuck there and they don't wear it lately. And that does happen, and that's real.
So it's also, it's possible it's the other way around. You're an archetype having the Daniel experience.
You could do this. You could look at it this way, because, you know, relationships and stuff, but I don't think that's healthy. Look, I don't think it's a healthy way to look at things.
I don't know about healthy, but it may just be less useful. Like, what do I do with the fact that I'm the archetype experiencing what Eliot is right now?
Yeah, I think it does happen. Like, I feel like I have been the archetype experiencing my life myself at some times, but and if that's happening, that's, you know, that's happening, and ride it out and stuff, but, you know, do the best you can. But like, you're not, like, you're a soul, or an infinite soul, or consciousness, or whatever you want to call it. And you play the archetypes, and you wear your body. I guess this is real heavy metaphysics, and people kind of get to choose.
Yep.
But choose this one; it's better.
Yeah, I mean, you've also pulled up a metaphysic of religion that people have souls or something like that.
Yeah,
If that's your base metaphysic, that's your base metaphysic.
Well, I'm just calling it a soul, right? Like, I guess, like okay, so like in like Buddhism, it would be like consciousness. In let's say legal, it would be like personhood. In our day and age, we get like autonomy, is like kind of like that
Also
or
got
whatever.
like ego.
Huh?
Ego is a different one.
Ego, I think, is different. I think ego is confused with this. Because like I'm a consciousness and nobody can relate to me because nobody can understand what I am because I'm infinite consciousness, just like everyone else. But we still go through the world and we need to play our character
like everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't fully comprehend a human being. That's not possible. Or you can fully comprehend them in ways that just don't like open your mind up and your life will be better. But we can, so like we create egos so that people can interact with us, so that we can get through the world. So like, like one of my egos is the happy fool. People can play with that. And that's sort of my signal. Like, hey, I'm putting this thing here. And people look at the flag, they're like, oh, I like the flag. I'll hang out with that guy. Or no, I don't like the flag. I'm not gonna hang out with him.
Sometimes I have this vision that comes to me from time to time, which is like giant dragon creatures, like ancient reptile, like big monster entity holding like finger puppets. And the like there's like a finger puppet.
Yeah.
There's two of them and they're us talking
like
to each other. And we're larger than we can know, we're bigger than life, and yet we then put all our effort into having finger puppets to talk to each other.
Yeah, because like deep down we're all children, and if we see a dragon, we're gonna lose our shit.
Right.
But if we see finger puppets, we're like, oh, that's fun. Depending on the finger puppet and everything. And then I think as you go on, you got to see more. Like as you become closer and more connected with people, you got to see more and more what's behind that. And as you become more blanks, but then the thing is like all that stuff is like deep, right? Like deep, like architecture to your psyche, and so that stuff can be very triggering. And so that's why we walk the path, so that we can be more calm and let go of things, less attachment, and then we can see reality as it is more. And we can see people as they are more, and that's freaking awesome.
I'm like, all right, so what else about retreat? It was interesting. So I was the organizer, and then I had one teacher, and then we had 11 other participants. But I was saying a little earlier to Daniel directly, one of the really interesting things about this container is that the organizers, the facilitators, are not outside of the container. It's not like maybe a bit more. Classroom's not the best example, but it's like a sports field. It's not like the coaches stand on the side of the sports field and tell the players to run around, and that's the game. It's more like the coaches are on the field and in the container in real life with the participants of the experience, also demonstrating how to be here, how to be in it, having their own vulnerabilities, so being powerful with us.
That's so beautiful. Like that's like, to me, like when the soldiers talk about like following the leaders, and then the leaders are at the front lines and they're in the trenches with the people, that to me is inspirational.
Right.
That makes me want to follow the leader, because they get it. And I know they get it because I see them deal with it. And when they're good leaders, I want to follow, like I want to follow them around. Like whatever you're doing, I want to do that with you, because like that experience of doing the things with you is amazing.
Mm.
And so it becomes just like it's just a natural leader. And I know I don't mean natural in that that's the way they were born. I mean natural as in when you're with them, it's natural to follow them.
Mm. I'm trying to make a link here between that, the way that I haven't been in many group settings where the facilitator is really in the container like this. And it surprised me the first time I saw it. But I'm trying to make a link between that and like agent arena relationship, which you've kind of talked about before, but do you want to like try and explain what that thing is?
Yeah, so I always do a bad job of this, and I shouldn't because it's one of my favorite concepts. But essentially, you have like agent arena relationship is you have an agent and you have the arena. So, and then there's the relationship. So, so like I'm here on this YouTube channel right now. So I'm the agent. I'm doing things. I have certain goals I'm trying to achieve, certain things I'm trying to do. Then there's the arena, which is YouTube. So like, for example, like
arena is this conversation or no? Okay, YouTube, keep going.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, like all these things are arenas, right? Let's say it's a complex arena. So we have like the YouTube and the conversations. So I'm like trying to navigate and I'm in these things going on. Oh, sorry. So I jumped a step. The YouTube channel is a certain way. The conversation is a certain way. And then the relationship is me trying to navigate all that. So a lot of the stuff I'm doing, it's not because of me and it's not because of the arena, it's because of that relationship within it. So like, for example, my natural inclination is to like move around a lot. YouTube doesn't actually care if I do that, right? Like it's going to stream the same no matter what. But I'm conscious of that relationship that if I'm moving around a lot, it's going to be distracting towards people. And so I'm making decisions purely based off of the relationship instead of what's happening inside me. And so that has actually huge implications. A lot of the stuff we do in life is it's like the universe is telling us to do it, or like the world or whatever's going on is telling us to do it. Like if you're driving on the road in Canada, it's the road is telling you to drive on the right side. And I don't mean that in that I hear voices telling me that I need to drive. It's that relationship with the road is such that
rules in our society, relationship with the rules of the road in our society.
Yeah, is that the relationship will only work out if I'm will only work out for everyone, for me and the arena of the road if I drive on the right. And there's no laws of physics that say I can't drive on the left or in the middle, but it inclines me, it very much like pushes me into this. And I have no complaints about that. Like it's fine. But yeah, so like it's more understood as the agent arena relationship. And that would be like the rules of the road or something.
Well, I'm glad I got you to explain because I was thinking something different about agent arena. Well, maybe
this is what I think it is. I mean, I didn't coin the term or anything.
Well, maybe I can add some more, and maybe you can agree or disagree.
Sure.
So one piece of the puzzle that I think about is I, as the agent, have chosen to be in so sort of like I've chosen a perspective that defines the arena that I'm in. So I can choose the arena of I'm chatting to Daniel. I can choose the arena and that'll have some sort of perspective and some sort of way of acting because I'm chatting to Daniel. And then I can actually choose a different arena, which is that I am making a YouTube channel, and that'll have a different sort of perspective and a different sort of action, maybe similar, maybe different. And then I can choose the arena of like, I have my whole lifetime and I'm, this many years old and actions on the scale of a lifetime, which I'm obviously not very good at doing because I'm only so young and I've not lived thinking about my whole lifetime for long enough. But like I also get to choose the arena of my entire day. And this is a time window that I cut out for this. And so as the agent, I get to choose which arena to pay attention to. I mean, there's other types of arenas. There's like Daniel's feelings. Am I Like, am I playing the game to like get vulnerability, and so I'm gonna find Daniel's weak feelings and attack them, or am I trying to choose the arena of like making and keeping friends? And so I'm like, let me drop into that arena and figure out how do I do that, or am I choosing like this YouTube channel has to make money, and so we have to like make outrageous claims to do that. Like, you know, these are different arenas that I as an agent who has moved beyond the human, like I'm just this body in the world, into like a greater awareness of stuff. I need to start choosing which games I'm playing and which arenas I'm playing in.
Yeah.
And how do I hold all that? You know, I just named like 10 different ways of being and 10 different things to pay attention to. I need to choose all those, as well as how my human demonstrates my response to those arenas.
Yeah.
So
and also which agent,
Mm-hmm.
like which part of you is in charge.
Right.
Yeah. So that's meta awareness of the agent arena relationship. And then you're being meta, but you have a meta awareness of the situation, and then you're making choices within that. I choose this agent arena relationship, or this one and this one. That's at least how I would if we're classifying. I guess, yeah, this is psychotech. So to classify the psychotech, that's how I would say. Like you're one meta level higher.
Right. So it's also, there was a time in my life where I wasn't so good at knowing the arena. I was like just me, the like body sense of me walking through the world in kindergarten, going like, I don't understand like a bajillion things right now. And then I sort of grew to a bigger and bigger sense of me until I was like, oh, Daniel thinks a different thing to what I think. I should find out what he thinks, because that might be interesting to me. And like Daniel is, my agency can be in Daniel when I'm like, Daniel, please explain this to me. And like my arena is now the conversation that we're in, and I give Daniel my agency temporarily by listening to what he has to say.
Not really. I wouldn't describe it that way.
It's
that might be what you're doing, and if you're doing that, I would suggest a different way.
Well, it's like maybe I don't give my agency. I give my listening. I keep my agency and I give my listening, but actually I can do the same thing by giving my agency. And then Daniel's the agent, and I get to go. Yeah. I get to watch.
I would be careful giving away agency.
Well,
generally advise against that.
Yeah, but definitely.
The way, yeah, like, but what I would say, the way I would describe that situation is like when you're asking a question, is that you as the agent is after some information, and so you affect the environment such that you'll get that information in that. So like you affect the environment in such a way that you can get the information. So the two relationships are the agent interacting with the environment to cause change, and then the second one is the environment interacting with the agent to cause change.
Right.
And so you're wanting that agent arena relationship.
Well, so if I'm
participating,
if I'm sitting here and I hear a loud noise outside, right, my agency was momentarily like taken by the loud noise outside, and my attention's on like, what was that? It feels almost military.
Okay, I think I see what you're saying. Tell me about this like losing of agency that happens to you, because I know what phenomenon you're talking about, but like I think different people experience it or have it differently.
So the perspective I'm coming from when describing this is something like a witnessing of my moment-to-moment awareness in the world. So one moment I'm listening to my voice, the next moment I'm looking at Daniel. A moment later, if there's a loud noise outside, my attention will be on that. And so some of my experience in the world is to move my attention in certain ways, or it feels like I am the one choosing to put my attention on Daniel or on my voice or on another object. And some of my experience is that my attention is suddenly over there on the loud noise outside. And in that sense, if the thing of me being in control of where my attention is suddenly isn't because the loud noise took it, then my agency is kind of over there for a bit. And
Her
then
attention's over there. But by
my agency over where my attention points to is over there. And so that's an example, I would say, of the arena influencing my agency. I'm not sure if that one fits for you.
I don't like it, but I think it is.
Hey, I don't like it either. I don't know. If I could have control that I never got distracted by loud noises, I'd probably be dead because I wouldn't have heard an important
Yeah, but like,
so it's like, I don't know if I like it or not.
yeah, so that's what I mean. Like, did you really lose agency if there's a loud noise? If you're like, hey, in general, like I'm paying attention, but if there's like also for me, like I'm paying attention to you, but there's like a part of me that's paying attention to the environment. And if there's a fire, I'm just gonna like fuck off, right? Like I'm just gonna leave without saying goodbye. And that's a good thing. And I'll be honest, most of the time that I think bad things are happening, they're not, but I still pay attention. And I still want to. Like when my kid cries, I still want my attention to go there. Most of the time he's fine. He's just like, whatever. But sometimes he's not. And I don't know what it is until I'm like, if I'm not paying attention, I'm not going to know what it is. And so that's like a deeper agency, or a meta agency is deciding where that individual momentary agency moves.
Well, okay, here's another aspect. Depends how I relate to the loud noise. So if there's a loud noise and I get irritated that I'm interrupted, right? And I build a habitual response of like, when I'm interrupted, I get irritated. Then I'm the agent choosing, like I still get distracted, but I'm choosing to be irritated by the arena all the time. Potentially.
Right. So in that case, let's say you're getting annoyed at it. You're not choosing to get annoyed at it.
Well, I can, because I can choose to surrender the fact that my attention goes towards loud noises, or I can fight it. And I can choose to fight it by trying to concentrate and sometimes getting irritated. I can not fight it by like recognizing things I can't change, and there's a whole dance going on.
Yeah. So if you lose, like if you've lost control, like if you don't want it and you meta don't want it. I mean, there's obviously like a part of you that does want to do it, or else it wouldn't happen
at all. I'd go deaf. Maybe I could go deaf if I really, really, really wanted to not hear anything.
No. But like involuntary actions means that there's a part inside you that wants to do this, right? Even if you're doing the knee tap, you're like, okay, I don't want to hit my knee, but you tap the knee. So like the tendon wants the muscle to fire, right? Like you don't, but there's a part of you that wants to, and that part is the tendon, right? And that's its reflex, and that's what it does. So there is a part of you that does want to look, but let's say in general, you've lost your agency over that situation. Yeah, I would say that. That's not great. Yeah.
Right. So,
but it does happen. It's very normal.
My point of bringing this up was to talk about agent arena relationship, and the like, which arena do I think I'm playing in right now, or do I want to be playing in right now? And am I choosing the arena and choosing the agent, or am I only choosing the agent and therefore stuck in an arena, like a conversation I don't want to be in, or on a topic I don't want to talk about? Or is there some recognition in me that I have way more control over the arena as well as the agent?
Yeah. So I kind of want to suggest something.
Sure.
Like throw that all away, and instead there's only one agent and one arena. And the agent is you, or consciousness, or choice, or whatever. And the arena is everything.
Right. But it does sometimes feel like
just always be there.
Maybe. Well, but it does sometimes feel like when I was a little kid, it felt like sometimes I was a smaller human one, and the arena was sort of lots of things which I didn't know.
Yeah, and then within that, there's all these like sub relationships that are good to be
Right,
managed.
right.
Yeah,
So,
and managing that is difficult and complex.
there's only one
It's
agent.
easier from this place.
There's only one agent, the experiencer, and there's one arena, which is everything else.
Yeah,
Yeah. But it's not always that I don't know that holding that one all the time is a useful perspective, because
yeah.
I don't really need to get out of bed if there's just one everything and one me observing, unless I like
Is that true?
make a decision like I like observing and therefore I want to take care of my body so I can live a long time and do lots of observing. Like,
Well, you're observing the universe, like you're observing the body in bed,
right.
and you're observing the impulses that are coming from the body, and you're observing, let's say, your memories of humans need to eat,
Right.
and you're experiencing and you're making choices, and yeah, like you get to make choices, like you get to be the universe.
Well, I mean, I can even do a shorter version of this. Like I can hold my breath, and if I hold my breath for a while, eventually I will probably like stop breathing again.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, like I anticipate I will feel a buildup of tension in my body after,
Yeah,
and then I
yeah,
will.
you build up carbon dioxide, and that will uh, you know trigger a reflex that will cause you to gasp for air, or you'll pass out and your
Automatic system will start taking over.
yeah, autonomic system will take over.
Mhm.
And those are all observations, and those are all choices, and I think within the grand scheme of the universe, you don't have control over everything, but you have control over some things. And you get to choose those things.
Mhm.
And I think this is why it's like on the path like this. Like I think this is the ultimate spiritual experience, to do this just all the time. And I think that's why it's so important to be a good person, because if you're a bad person and you're sitting there and you're like, realize like this body should die. I don't know what that's like, but I don't want to experience that. That sounds horrible. Yeah. So be good. Be-
Daniel's moral philosophy: just be good.
just be good so you don't hate this is a big thing. This is a thing I do with people a lot. Is where they're like, oh, they hate themselves. I'm like, well, are you a good person? And they're like, oh, I think so, maybe. I'm like, well, be better, and then you'll like yourself more. People like good people.
That is profound and deep and shallow at the same time. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's like that perfect blend.
There's a lot of there's like schema therapy. There's a whole bunch of psychology that starts to work with and deal with people who aren't sure if they're a good person.
Oh, really?
Well, there's schema therapy has a list of 17 most common schemas, and one of them is like, I believe that deep down I'm actually a bad person. And what it comes with is this huge amount of like masking and overloaded strategies to like prove that you are not a bad person or prove that you're good. And it's got this whole like exhausting dance of like have to effortfully make sure that everyone knows that I'm good, otherwise they might find out that I'm actually deep down really bad.
Yeah, that's the ego. Like you've switched from you to the ego, and the ego is it's what's surviving and getting nourishment, not you. That's a bad situation for everyone.
Right. And so there's a whole type of therapy that works on noticing they're called maladaptive schemas. They are like self or universe beliefs that don't help you. And other ones are like punitive or I don't know, there's a whole list. I can't remember them all.
Yeah.
But so people end up with like self-sabotage if they're like, but bad things always happen to me. Doesn't matter how good things are going, they're still like, but bad things are gonna happen. And they can't improve until they get down to that schema and then clean it up.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder, like, I'm curious how often do you meet people who think they're good people, or how often do you meet people who think they're bad people, good deep down?
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like a lot of people think they're bad. And I don't know if that's probably just selection bias would be my guess.
Well, yeah, I guess I'm curious. I don't know how many, like, very quick, like, cursory scan over the people I know. I don't think I know which way these people twist. So maybe I'll have to go around and ask my friends.
Yeah. I think the trick, and like be careful with this, is I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to the audience when I say be careful. Is ask people if they like themselves. And then like
That's kind of nuanced as well. You can be
have
a
a
good person and
conversation
not
about
like
it.
yourself.
Have a conversation about it. And like see if they're going down like the humble route, like, oh, actually, I'm really awesome, but I don't want to make you feel bad about yourself. Or if they're going down like the avoidance of like, no, I feel good about myself as long as I don't think about it.
It's interesting. It's interesting also. I'm in the mind of this detail of growing up where below a certain age, we don't know good and bad. Things just kind of are. And then shortly after, we have emotions and we work out which ones we like and which ones we don't like. Like a small child doesn't know the difference between screaming, crying, happy, laughing. They're just doing what they're doing.
Oh, when they're really, yeah, like
Well,
it's just
right.
yeah.
We're talking like below 5, below 4. They're
Oh
good or bad yet. Maybe below 3 or 2.
no, my kid, he's 7.5 months.
Yeah.
He bit me today.
Yeah.
And I said, ow, that's too hard. Because at first he did a little nibble, and I was like, okay, that's fine. Then he did like a bite, and he's got teeth now. And they're small. Child teeth are small, so they're like razors. And the fingernails too. It's not bad evolution. And he bit me. And like I went, no, no. I went, ow, that hurt like too hard. And he did like this smile that was like, I think he did that on purpose.
Cheeky grin.
Yeah. Because
Right.
like he's really starting to wake up more, and like he can't talk, but we can like he's still like he's kind of getting like chains of stuff.
Well, so in theory, my proposal is there's a moment before good and bad. There's like a consciousness before good and bad, and then a bit older, we're like, well, this is obviously good and this is obviously bad. Or like we go from gray to black white thinking, and like good and bad, black and white. Like we like these things, we don't like those things. Like we can evaluate and like draw lines about what the world is or isn't.
Yeah, sometimes too much. I think to make
Right,
it
as adults, we screw ourselves up by having too much of it. But there's something really strange where we can drop back to, because we've already passed through this mode of consciousness. We have a whole bunch of modes of consciousness that we pass through on the way to growing up. One of which is perception of time, which changes over time because we've just had more of it, right? But there's this way in which we can drop back to the prior to good and bad, things just kind of are. And then after that, we can kind of make more sharp the distinction of good and bad. And so
yeah,
it becomes confusing. Like people pick up that punitive, like I'm bad. But then before that, what was it? They just hadn't noticed the good and bad thing, and then they found the good and bad, and then they picked I'm this one.
You're like saying like, what's that trend? Like when Eve ate the apple, what was that transition like?
Right. But so the proposal is that we can just kind of drop back to the consciousness of before knowledge of good and evil.
Yeah, it's hard, but yeah.
And I would propose that it's kind of a nicer place to live, but also sometimes you need to know what's good and what's not good for you.
Yeah.
Don't drink the poison every day.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely need to spend time in there. Because this is like, it's like prejudgment. I think there's like prejudgment, judgment, and then post-judgment. And it's important to spend time in the prejudgment for sure. Because otherwise you don't know what's going on.
Well, it's important to spend time in all of these. Like you need to
Yeah.
understand black and white thinking as well, like discernment thinking.
Yeah. I was just starting with that one because
Yeah,
that's the one I picked. But
but,
yeah.
but like each of these ways of thinking or ways of seeing the world, you need to spend time in different emotions to understand them. You need to spend time in logic to understand the logic of the world. You need to spend time in relational space to understand the relational qualities of the. You need to spend time in each of these arenas to
Yeah.
understand how to play the games in these arenas.
Well, I wouldn't call these arenas. I would call these like states or maybe different agents or something. Because yeah, it's much more like I feel like it's much more me. Like the universe doesn't change if I'm
Right,
in
definitely.
like if I'm judgy or I'm not judgy, the universe is the same.
Well,
It
let me react to it,
looks
but
different.
yeah, it looks or feels different based on internal states that you may be able to generate.
Yeah.
Make yourself angry, and then you can find yourself angry at everything around you. But the universe is, in fact, the same base atomic configuration. The anger that is internally generated just like hits that stuff, and as you go, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this.
Yeah.
So yes, maybe it's the agent changing, not the arena. But
Yeah. The
certainly
agent
can
in a
feel,
relationship changes.
certainly can feel like the arena is changing as well, and it certainly can feel like the agent arena relationship is changing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the agent relationship changes, from your perspective, a lot of times people will just switch arenas. Like what you're saying, like how you're doing it with you have different schemas.
Mm.
Like there's a universe in judgment, universe pre-judgment, universe post-judgment, and those are different places. And I'm coming to say, no, those are all the same place. You're different in those places, and the agent arena relationship is different in those places. But it's all one thing.
Mm.
And that's the parsimonious explanation. And that's what makes it scientific. Because we're psychotechnologists, we're a branch of science. So we gotta be, like proper, follow the rules of science.
We've got to be working the world out around us.
Hmm?
We're scientists, and we have to be spending our capacities working out how stuff works around us.
Yeah, and we have to follow the scientific method. You can't just like make shit up, right? I mean, they can make shit up, but then that's called a hypothesis, and you need to test it.
Hmm.
This is what I believe.